I'm host Eric. I'm here with famous person and dank meme, Lorenz Walker. Um, and we're talking about planning tonight. We're saying, hey, some people like to plan. Some people do well with planning. Other people, not so great at planning and struggle a bit. Now, those types may be blessed with additional improvisational skills. They may be able to riff off what's in front of them quite successfully. But even if that is the case, a certain amount of planning and structure can go a long way in helping an average performance or production become somewhat superior, improved upon, and or otherwise more appealing to a viewing audience. And thus it is that we have planned this particular video on planning. Nick arrives unplanned amidst this planning video about planning, and thus I'll have to add him to the plan. I'll write it right here under the heading planning. Before the first thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to draw a little arrow and write in Nick arrives. Now it's part of the plan. No longer is Nick's arrival unplanned. It is now a planned part of this episode on planning. The first subsection will include Nick in this conversation as well now. We're talking about results versus process types. This is a distinction or a dichotomy that I picked up from Casual INTP, who talked about it the other day. He says it's an Iranian dichotomy. I think it's a good dichotomy. And he indicates that and I agree with it certainly, am a process type of personality, which is to say, I focus on the overall movement of things rather than specific benchmarks as the deciding factor in whether something or not a good idea or whether we should keep doing it or whatever. So it doesn't really matter if it achieves a given outcome if the process is working properly according to me. In contrast, a results type will be very results oriented. So they'll tend to structure their tasks with much more planning because they want to execute a specific set of steps in order to achieve a given outcome. And they may not know the exact order of those steps, but they know an exact number of specific actions that need to be taken. And they take those actions. They aren't making those decisions on the fly, as is the process type. The process type, therefore, is less likely to plan. So, which type is which? Well, I think INTPs are generally considered to be results types, and ENTPs are considered process types. I suspect INFJs are also results types, but I don't know for sure. But any comments thus far on this issue? Let's start with you, Lorenz Walker, my original co-host in this matter, before we have a tri-host here. For Lorenz Walker, any thoughts on the results versus process type?
Well, for me with planning, I want to get a good enough general outline of the steps needed to make a result without committing to it. I just want to know, I pretty much just want to know the steps to get to almost any point. I just want to know the process behind it so that if I do choose that, I would have I'd already have it set up, I guess. I'd have the information.
Okay, so that sounds like a very results type oriented thinking about things. Nick, what are your thoughts on the process and results types dichotomy?
Well, this is the first time being introduced to it, like how you explained it. Um, but so I guess right now I just want to understand it better. So process type is focused on how things need to go and is flexible, as to where results type is less focused on the process but more focused on independent metrics that um, can explain whether or not something is succeeding. They want to see the results.
Yeah, and they tend to prioritize things that produce reliable, consistent results rather than things that are speculative. Whereas process types tend to prefer, or I don't know, produce or generate or whatever, more speculative type things.
Well, is it one is more focused on the right now as to where the other is focused on future? Has a good idea of what's to come.
I think they may both be focused on the future, but they're focused on it in very different ways. The process type will see the future as a a plane of potentialities, and the results type will see it as a mountain on which you have to find the pathway up there. It correlates with Ni more and Te, and conflicted types like INFJs. I'm not sure what they do with that.
So, does the result type, are they focused on results because they need validation for the process they've set forth? Make sure it's working right? As where the process type may have a little bit more certainty in the process they've chosen?
Well,
Because, I
I,
mean,
I
I'm sure both are focused on results and process. It's just one has a more focus on one than the other. I mean, when I do things, I focus on results and process. I
well,
mean,
I guess the
one
thing
begets the
is, I think that one of the key differences is the need for clarity about how you're getting from A to B before you leave A. I think the process type is comfortable bushwhacking their way through to point B. I think the results type is much more comfortable with finding the trail that already exists and pursuing that to the desired outcome, maybe improving that trail along the way. Maybe digging out an occasional shortcut.
Hmm.
Does a lot of it have to do with the third slot being the reward zone? Like, so INTP would have SI in the third slot, and therefore wants to be like structured and result oriented over the ENTP.
I mean, I don't necessarily. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Nick.
Well, I mean, it's just I understand what you're saying, and I think it's important. I may be wrong, but it's interesting to choose the way that you're separating the two dichotomies. It's interesting that you're focused on the results and process for each one. Could there be a different way to look at it? And the way that the way that two different people go about starting a project or trying to accomplish something, it's just the way they focus on results and process. I mean, is there something else that you could characterize each one of these by?
Well, the topic of this, and that's a good way to bring it back around, is actually planning, not results versus process. So, results versus process was an interesting dichotomy that I learned about recently that I wanted to bring in to talk about planning. But it brings me back on topic, which is planning, how different types plan differently, and whether or not they like planning, dislike planning, if they feel comfortable going into something unplanned or not. Now, I speculated at the outset that this is inverse in strength with improvisational skills. So the better one's improvisational skills are the less one likes to plan, and then probably the less good one is at planning. And I would say that ENTPs are averse to planning, and INTPs are averse to being unplanned, but not in favor of planning, which is a complicated combination of things to have in your bag of awfulness to carry around, right? And we each type has their own bag of awfulness.
I
I
feel
think
like
prepared and planning are different things, though. So, like, the INTP is averse to planning, but they're always prepared. Yeah, that is all.
That's
I
true.
feel like it's
For the
I
few
feel like
things
it's
they do, yes, that's true.
I know. Are you? Is this relating to um, INTPs you know, or the function stack?
I say
Like,
it's
what are
related to the
you?
function stack. And the reason is because they are judgers first. They want they're consistently fives in Enneagram types, and they want to understand a system first and foremost before they act upon it. Like an introverted intuitor, and they tend to strongly identify with introverted intuition. what their ideal move is to stand back, observe a system, note all of its functionalities, and then make a single move to win the system in one fell swoop. Boom. This thing will collapse everything in this way and blah, 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 and therefore I win. After watching all these people battling for a long time, the INTP stands on the sideline watching the whole thing for a long time, then finally does one thing and wins everything all at once. That's the INTP's dream scenario. And so in that regard, it makes them more NI-like in some regard than you'd expect with any in the second slot. From what it sounds like, talking with INTPs on talking with famous people, they find using extroverted intuition something that requires some effort. That they got to turn it on to generate possibilities. Unlike you and me, who are constantly riffing off everything we encounter at all times and trying to ride that fucking bucking horse, which is a challenge sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the more you do it, the more comfortable it becomes, right?
Well, you're subject to different kinds of bucking. I mean,
yeah, well said. Well said. Uh, I don't know. I guess I just struggle to. I know. Way I think of it as is, INTPs. They're more into planning. They think things through, and they, sometimes they don't do something because they've thought it through too much. As to where if they were more of if they had the NE engaged and were kind of like going out there, it would be. I don't know.
But this brings. I want to address a couple things here. They're on this purple planning paper. One is the question that was asked earlier about the reward zone third slot and the SI for the INTP, and the next one and the other one being timescales, which is what I was going to get at about the difference between the INTP and the ENTP. I think that INTP in short-term projects does pretty well with the planning stuff because they have that SI in the third slot. And they tend to do pretty well for anything that they feel like is important enough to compel them to do well at it. And they tend to go in prepared, as Neptune says, not planned, quote unquote. Well, that means they're prepared. Their plan is flexible, but they're prepared, right? So it's they don't like to go in and wing it. That's for sure. They're not prone to overconfidence. They're prone to underconfidence. When Zachary came to judge for me at Nationals, no matter how much I reassured him that he was going to be able to handle it, that the people who were going to be judging in concert to him were much less experienced, he still felt like he needed to learn more about it. Whereas an ENTP would have just been like, oh, yeah, of course I can handle it. Doing dentistry? Sure, I could do that. Of course.
Yeah.
Just give me a drill, give me a nurse. I don't know, I'm ready to go. How hard could it be? Pull the fucking tooth out.
Yeah.
You're like that too, huh, Nick?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to. It's. But I look back at times where I have been prepared, or at least I've studied a fair amount of something similar to whatever it is I'm winging, and that it's certainly valuable, But so it's having confidence in winging it. I don't think it's necessarily helpful sometimes, But at the same time, it can.
But if there's no dentists around,
here's what I am confident in. Here's what I am confident in. If I'm having to be a dentist and there's no dentist around, my patient isn't gonna know if I'm fucking up right away. I'll fuck up with grace, I think.
Oh no, that's completely normal. Those patients are completely normal. You
see, Bob. What happened was you moved. We put you to sleep, and you actually went in a fit of rage and hate. And you're actually gonna have to pay for this hole in the wall. I mean, I didn't want to come around to go on that. I wasn't even going to mention it, but if you're coming to me talking to me about my bad dentistry, then I, sir, am not going to take care of that bill that you should have paid.
So
I'm quite upset with you. And I'm actually going to have to go to a therapist because of the PTSD that you put upon me. I mean, you really have me. I'm at a loss for words, Bob. I can't believe you're coming to me with this.
No, see, you go, Good Samaritan law covers me. I'm not really a dentist, but somebody needed to do that emergency dental work. So I stepped up and I did it as a Good Samaritan. I wanted to save you the worry, okay? Now here you come trying to accuse me of harming you. Sir, your teeth have never looked better.
Hey, Claire, get in here. Look at Bob's teeth. You think there's anything wrong? Claire, don't you say don't you dare say anything bad about Bob's teeth right now.
Oh my God, your smile is lovely, sir.
See, Bob?
See?
Now, Bob, you seem to have some serious self-image issues. I happen to be a therapist also. Why don't you sit down?
Planning. And so we return to the topic of planning. Now,
In a game of chess, you're basically saying like the ENTP would be the offender and the INTP would be the defender. That they would strategize defensively versus the ENTPs offensively, or
I
no?
didn't say that. No, I mean,
I'm asking you if you
I
agree with
do
this.
find that INTPs prefer water style, which is defend the least ground, attack the minimum ground you need to attack in the most reasonable sounding way. It's a neat trick. It's very efficient. It's smart, you know. It's not how I roll. I roll the exact opposite way. I try to claim as much ground, way more ground initially than I need to win the point. So if the point is we should get pizza, not sandwiches, and your side is no, we should get sandwiches, not pizza, my initial claim will be pizza will prevent us. Well, pizza will keep us healthy and good, and sandwiches will kill us. And I'll start there, and then I'll backpedal to like, okay, well, pizza sounded a little bit more tasty than sandwiches. I'll start at the furthest possible extreme, and pull back. So, I mean, that's in some kind of a structured debate. If I'm just actually talking, then I probably will just not really do that. So, okay, let's go back to planning. So the thing about planning here, it says, how do they plan differently? Timescales. Well, one of the things I was saying is, this kind of planning, I'm down with this kind of planning. If it sounds fun, right? It's just some scribbles on the paper. We can do that. And it even can help us stay on topic a little bit. It's hard, but
I definitely
we can.
do that.
That kind of
It's
planning
really
is fine.
important.
It's short-term planning, though. It's short, quick planning. It takes a couple of minutes to do the pre-work. That's it. I don't like shit that requires a lot of pre-work. Whatever it is that the actual work is, I want to get busy doing that shit. I don't want to do a bunch of setup stuff that planning implies and seems to require.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I'm going about this very thing right now. I mean, I'm going to, the new job that I'm going to be having is completely different than anything I've ever done before, and I'm going to be running a business in an industry that I've never worked. So, planning, like I have to plan my research even. You know what I mean? I got to focus on certain areas, and so I'm having to do this very type thing. And I definitely, it's all short term. Like I'll be like, I'll figure the rest out once we get there.
Well, the grandma massage industry is a very particular industry, and
I'll show you.
you got to learn all the specs. All right, well, I think that's about the end of our planning video. Any last thoughts from anybody? Planners?
Oh, this has been a video. Shit.
Planners or
I'm sorry.
non-planners alike?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Nick hasn't really been paying much attention. That's fine. It's
I
okay.
did try.
It's okay. Just 20 best minutes of your life right there. All right, anybody else have any comments on planning? That's it then. Thanks for watching Talking with Films, people.